Good. We still have 1 minute. Should we just do the presentation first, or what do you think, Ludwig?
Yeah, I think we can share these intro slides and then hand over to Nataliia.
Good. So let me know when you can see the screen. Good. Welcome to the Dynamics Meetup for Germany for April 22. This time we're doing it in English. Usually we do it in German. So we have an agenda for today. We are starting with this introduction, and then we have Ines, who will tell us about the new migration, where HR will merge into finance and operations. And Nataliia will tell us about the product configurator, both really interesting topics that we are looking forward to. And then in the end, we have discussions, and we need to talk about when the next meeting should be. Organizing this meeting, we are all here today. It's me, Jürgen, and Ludwig. If you have any topics that could be interesting to hear about, just let us know. We are open for ideas, and if you have something you want to talk about yourself, just give us a call, and we will see if we can organize it. We have some rules for our sessions. When someone is speaking, we are muting our microphones, so we don't hear when your husband is cleaning or whoever is doing that, or wife. And only come with constructive feedback, because we are all here because we want to learn from each other, and we spend our spare time here. So we are here to have fun and discuss about all these things. And don't advertise if you can avoid it, or only what is needed on your slides. So let's just see. In the end, we will talk about this when the next meeting will be. We will take that after the two presentations. So let's see now if you can share, Nataliia.
Yep. Doing that now. And let me know once you will see the slides. I'll share it in a second. Boom.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. And this session going to be dedicated for the product configurator, where I will review and give you an overview of main core functionalities and system capabilities in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And before I'll start, I just wanted to give a bit of a quick introduction. My name is Nataliia Sukhanova. I'm solution architect, primarily focusing on supply chain and manufacturing areas. And I'm here based in New Zealand, working for one of the local implementation partners. You could see the link to my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to contact. I'm always happy to expand my network. From time to time, I used to do some blogging, and you could find this under the CleverAX WordPress. So feel free to follow as well if you would find something useful. The agenda for the product configurator, or for this session that I'm going to run, is a bit of an overview where we are using and what are the business cases to use this functionality, what is the configuration model and its main components, the pricing options that are applicable for the configurator, and then its lifecycle states or accessibility or availability. So from where basically we can run it and where we can use it, following by the demo in the end and Q&A if you'd have any questions. Okay, let's kick off then. So the very first one is probably a bit of an overview from the business point of view or from the use case where we are using product configurator. We're using product configurator in configure-to-order processes where our customer determines the finished product or end product as a part of ordering or quoting process. By making the options or selections on the sales steps, we are finalizing our finished product, and we may impact by manipulating those attributes. We are impacting or affecting on the finished product, its characteristics, potentially it can affect its price, or a way how the product is manufactured. When the customer is ordering, well, it depends on the industry, but you can either start from a base product, like when you buy a car, for example, you could select a color then. So you select a model before, then you select a color, or interior materials, and so on and so forth. So you are actually amending the base product with some custom features. Other examples could be just a completely custom builds, where you, as a customer, order something completely specific. Maybe it's I don't know, the custom rack for the supermarket, where it's a refrigerant or cooling rack, which is designed according to the supermarket size, the products you're going to store, and more likely you would never sell this project anymore, because this is really, really specific to the business. But regardless of the way, you have a starting point, which is the module you sell, and the possibilities of this product that can be configured a certain way, and the customer choices that lead you to the end result. On the flow chart, you would see a bit of a, let's say, end-to-end flow, and with three main building blocks of what the configured order stands for. And some of them are, well, all of them can be addressed with D365, and different areas, let's say, responsible or driven or action by different functionality in the system. So as a baseline, you would see on the bottom the product development side, where you decide what product you're going to develop, and it's more likely an engineering team who is doing that. And they come up with the possible options or choices that could affect or could be a part of this product design. By knowing the technical capabilities, or by knowing technical structure of the product, then we can decide how we can price it up, and how we can make the sales process a bit more simpler for the salespeople, because salespeople aren't that technical as engineering. They may not know some terminology as well as our customers. Therefore, sometimes you would want to have a bit of a different type of an interface or terminology used in the sales. Therefore, this is a bit of a split here between technical and the sales configurational areas. And the sales side on the top is really just the sales process, where the customer is looking to the salespeople, and you're adjusting, finishing your product as you go based on the requirements and that needed, let's say, by interacting with the salesperson configurator. And you would see that the salesperson would mostly interact with the sales configurator, the sales front face interface. And behind the scenes, the technical configuration is triggered, which will then create the BOM and the route that further passed to the manufacturing team, and further for delivery until the finished product has been delivered to the customer. So if we will marry up this flow or chart with the D365 functionality, the baseline in the bottom is the product configurator model, the one we call, and then the sales is really your sales experience in the system on how to actually make it happen, how to call it out, how to use the configurator in order to finalize the product. And this jumps me to the next slide, where there is a bit of a terminology of what configurator is, product configuration model is, and what are the key components of that. So the product configuration is the generic product structure. It stores different rules, constraints, and that effect on the final product. And by making some certain choices, when the user makes some certain choices, the product configurator model can generate a unique product, distinct product variant, which would be adjusted according to selections you've made. And the key component of the configurations, you can see there are quite few, and there is actually more to it. These are probably the most important ones, are the attributes. So the attributes, I used to call them as parameters or features or something that you can, as a user, select, which will affect on your end result, which will affect on your finished product, on the product you sell. The constraints The constraints is a restriction on the configuration module. The constraints are ensuring that the model that the user cannot select invalid options, so only valid options are selected. We have a couple of types of the constraints. The expression constraints, where it's similar to Excel formula that you can put on, let's say, and the system will evaluate those constraints and make certain fields or options within the same parameter unavailable or available. Then you have a table constraint, which could actually be divided into system and the user constraint. So the user is when the user actually defines the metric of metrics of available options or combinations of the attributes that can be selected together. And the system constraint is, instead of using the user input, we are hooking into the standard table behind the scenes and trying to constrain our system from the F&O dot. Therefore, a good example of the system constraint could be that the user should select or should be able to select only list of sites available in D365, for example. Then we have a calculation. So the calculation is if there is any need in the transformation between the input from a customer or from the configurator, and the choices that were made into something different, you could create calculations, and calculations could be a formula or any other expressions that basically will decide what the value of attribute is going to be. Then we have some components. Subcomponents is really the same product configuration model, but for another product. It's a semi-finished goods that the good which is a part can be a part of let's say a finished product. The best practice for the subcomponents is to make it to reuse it as much as possible. So when the whole product configurator concept is more likely consist of the building blocks. So you have to define the module, and then you have to streamline which components should be in, and make this list, let's say, as flexible as possible, that you can combine different either spare parts or semi-finished items together by coming up with a new product. Therefore, you try to make it as more modular, you try to make it as more reusable as possible, because that will reduce your maintenance time, and that will help you to be more flexible as well when you are configuring your products. The user requirements is no different from the subcomponents, so it's also will have its own attributes. The only difference between the user requirements and the subcomponents is when the subcomponent is added to the product configurator, and in real life it must have a product behind the scenes, so it's like a stock product, which is linked to your product list. The user requirements we can treat as a phantom. So it will have its own attribute. It can add a line into the bill of material. However, it does not require to have a product behind it. Then we have bomb lines and route operations. So those are really the components in the main production steps. It could be the list will cover the full variety to cover all the possible options. And then the system can choose which one are applicable. It depends on the selection that user made in both areas. In my demonstration, I'm gonna show you in the details how the configuration of all of these look like, and how easy is that actually to maintain it, despite that the configuration may not be easy itself, but the way how it's configured in the system, it's relatively simple. So after we've looked at the configuration model and its components, the second bit for it would be a pricing option. And from pricing point of view, we have two different options, which is the cost-based price. And this is no different to any prices that you could run for any ordinary product in D365, where your cost is based on the cost of the raw materials included into it. So you basically do the cost roll based on your bill of material and your route, and then you can add a margin on top of it. So there is it's a simple rule. It's driven by your current pricing, let's say, and nothing more than that. And then you have a different part, which is the attribute-based pricing. The attribute-based pricing is a bit more complicated, and it's similar to how the product configuration model looks like. You could retrieve the same list of attributes and say, if an attribute A is selected, I would want to add extra $20 or 20 euros on top of that, and so on and so forth. So you can add amount, you can extract amount, and you can put different formulas around that to get those pricing going. By putting all this information in place, let's say there are certain rules and certain stages, which leads me to the next slide, where in the details you could see the model lifecycle. And this is really to understand when is the right time and place to do certain things. And I've let's say I've set up, or I've defined 4 different stages from define, build, validate, finalize, where certain information should be done or should be performed, but that's a logical way how you interact with product configuration model. You have a defined stage where you're defining which attributes you are going to use. So if we're looking at this holistically and deciding what products we manufacture, okay, so what attributes has to be put into this model? What are the options available for the configuration for us? What are some main setup for the configuration parameters? So how we would like to see the pricing? Is there anything that has to be shown to the user? What would be the default model name, and so on and so forth. And then create components. Create components is kind of sitting in the middle between define and build, because in reality, component is the same product configuration model, but it's just important to know beforehand how exactly and what exactly your structure is. And then we have a build side. The build is really where you working on all your attributes, putting or linking the attributes to the model, adding certain constraints to the model, calculations, components, requirements, and so on and so forth. So you are actively creating and building your configuration. And after the configuration has been done, you validate that to see whether everything is taken in place. It's working, all the expressions are correct, the model can run successfully, all the features, all the attributes are selected or restricted in the way how you would expect it to be. And when we've we've done all our basics, we create a pricing module as a final step, in case if you are using attribute-based pricing, of course. After the model has been built, validated, and priced, we are doing final polish, which is our finalized stage, where you design your interface, so the way how it's presented to the user or who is going to interact with that. If you are working in a multi-language environment, you can add translations. So in different languages, the configurator is going to show to different people. If needed, you create a template. The template stands for predefined configuration choices or option selections. It's like a standard model, most popular pack or something like that, that you could create predefined beforehand. And instead of going through this certain long way of selection of all possible parameters, you could predefine or predefault some of them. And the very last one is you are activating and the configuration model. Activating, by saying that or by doing that, you are creating product configuration model version, which is the link to a release or to a product. Let's say this link to the product has to be approved and activated before it can be used further, anywhere further in the system. After all this hard work has been done, now it's a time to action or call our product configurator, and the options or the place from where we can call out the product configuration are sales order line, quotation, purchase order line, production order, and project item requirement line. The product configuration feature fully supports intercompany and intercompany direct delivery processes. It supports various scenarios starting from configuration in the manufacturing company or configuration through the distribution company, where the selling company or selling entity does not manufacture the end product, but just sources. So those are probably the most important and key, let's say, options or points I wanted to cover before I jump into the demo. Before I will start my demonstration, I just wanted to run through an example I've prepared. So we are all, let's say, clear what we're going to achieve. I've used a simple one. It may not be necessary in a configurable product in real life, but in a way it is. So we are using the Surface Pro as an example, where we have color, processor type, RAM capacity, and internal storage is the main attribute, which will drive our Surface configuration. This is why I've marked them as red, with different options for each. And then you have two options for optional, which is adding an extra cover and adding a Microsoft subscription. And for those two, we have other parameters to select, how many years of the subscription you're going to get, and what is the color, and whether you're going to have a slim pen included with them. So what I'm going to do is I will start from the end result. I'll show you how to configure and how my Surface Cover sales experience looking like. And after that, we'll go and have a look on the module behind the scenes and what exactly we have there. I'm going to share, oh, actually, I already have F&O open. And I will, I'm currently already in the sales order screen, therefore I've just no need to open this up. I'll just open existing sales orders. There is no need to probably demonstrate how to create a sales order. But what I'm going to start from is, and as a salesperson, when you are creating a sales order, you define your customer, and then it gets to the product. And this is the time for us where we are going to interact with the product configurator first time. So I can add a line, and I will drill down and I'll click on the item number field. So what the first change that you may see or you may notice if you work with the system most of the time is that I actually have a drop down between configurable products and all products. And that's just handy one because you could know and you can, let's say, differentiate ordinary items from the configuration products. It's not always like that. You can actually, the setup is driven by the parameter. And I just find it very useful to know, let's say when you're starting, you already know from what you're starting, which configurable products you are. And especially it's beneficial for the businesses who are only selling configurable products. And usually it's not going to be a wide range of finished models, I would say, but it would be a wide range of the combinations they can create. I'll select an item, which is my Surface Pro. And what you would notice as well is if I'll click on the bottom on my product side, you would see that my configuration at the moment is set to default. I haven't configured that yet, and it's just a default product that it's been done. And again, this is all driven by the setup in the system, and those default configuration could be in any information or any value the business needs, and that will default straight away for the products that are set up as a product configurator. The item itself will be set up, or will have to be set up as a constant constraint-based configuration for the variant definition, and it must have only the configuration product dimension group available. So after the product has been added to the sales order, I could click on the product and supply, and this is my time to call my product configurator functionality. I'll click on the configure line, and what you would see is the pop-up or the dialog where I have certain information populated. So let's say certain parameters that affect on my configuration, as well as some default price already. You may also notice that some of the parameters may or may not be mandatory. And some of them are populated already, some of them blank. So all of the parameters indicated, or all the parameters that affect on the final product result, these are visible on the configure screen. If I hover on any of the fields, if there is an additional information provided, you would see those details showing up in the, let's say, information control, and for any field. So that's can change field by field, or it may not have any details. When I'm starting to configure my product, so I am free to select any option at the beginning. I have no restrictions at the moment. For example, I'm going to change the color of my surface. It doesn't affect the price. My price didn't change. I have a processor type, but I already see there is a change. By changing the color, I no longer see Intel Core i5 available as a processor base. What I could also use is if I don't want to see, or if the list is too long of the constraints, and if I want to see only the options which are applicable for the selected attributes, I can click on the only feasible, so show only feasible, and my lists for every single attribute in here would be trimmed, and it will show only valid options available. Therefore, I may not have a long list of all possible combinations. I will just select from what I actually have. And yeah, I'll just turn this off back to show you what else do we have. So if there are no other, let's say, options available, or if I have chosen, like I will select the model now, I've chosen the model. If there are any other further attributes that has to be selected, you can carry on. If you, by selecting the model or processor type, you limit it to the very last, let's say, you will have only one last option, the system will automatically populate the remaining attributes. So if I'll select the processor i7, what you would see straight away by selecting this one, because I have no other options for it available, let's say, it goes only with 16 gigabytes and 512 memory of internal storage, it's populated straight away. You would also notice, that my price has changed. And by selecting those details affected my end price of the end product. So it's no longer 1,588. It's a bit more expensive now. When it goes to the accessories or extra, let's say, services or subscription with that, I am able to select whether I would like to have a cover or buy a cover. By selecting that one, you would see straight away that I have an additional configuration option now available that I have to configure further down the track. And same will happen. I'll select my services if I would want to pre-configure, predefine any details further. And again, my price have changed. Despite that I haven't changed some of the things, the price changed already for some of them. And that's basically that represents my cover cost already, because I've included the cover and I have to finalize which type of the cover it's going to be, which color. And by selecting color, color doesn't really affect the price as such. So you could have as many models as you like, or you can have subcomponents or an extra layers here that you see. And you can just continue going with the configuration further. So I can click next, and that leads me to my next side where I'll select the subscription type. And I have a bit of a restriction here. So because I've already included the Office 365, I have only choice to select which one exactly I'm going to pick, let's say family, and how many years. I can select it from the dropdown from 1 to 3. So these are the availables. So I'll just pick 3, let's say. And if I'll click on the next one, because this one has been finished, I have the cover configuration, which is my final, let's say ice blue, which I want to select. No price changes again, and I can actually select whether I would like to add a slim pen to it or not, which could be yes, which again affects my price. So before I finalize it and I'll click OK, which will basically trigger my new configuration, I could look at the price breakdown if I want to know what exactly affected on my price. So by clicking on the price breakdown, I'll get the Excel document downloaded where I could see what exactly, on which exactly are the components of my price. And you could see that I had my base, and then I had some changes related to the processor, the memory, and the internal storage, and then the cover, and then the subscription itself. So these details are also displayed based on the structure. They are defined in the model. All these numbers all this information is set in the pricing model for this product configurator. So okay, close that one. Enough reviewing. And before I wrap up with the configuration side, there is also a possibility to load the template. Because I've just jumped to the configuration straight away. I didn't open that up, but by clicking on the load template, you can select the template, and what will happen is behind the scenes, the template has some predefined parameters for the core configurator, for the product configurator. And by selecting the template, the system will basically retrieve those parameters from the template. I'm not going to do this at the moment. I'll just carry on with my Surface Pro, and I'll click OK. So after this it's done, what you would notice now is the configuration have changed, and it has a bit of a different naming from the default. This is also the setup that has been done in product configuration model, which is basically the configuration created based on certain attributes. The second change we may notice is that if I'll scroll a bit on the far right, the price is there. So it's actually created. And my price is retrieved, the price that was used during the product configuration, on the product configuration stage. On the bottom, I also see the BOM and route links to it. So by clicking or drilling down to the tail, so by selecting or configuring my product, I actually have a bill of material now behind the scenes, which I can access and I can see. And what I can see is my products and my components included into it. And what you would notice, like if you would remember, I've entered 3 years of the Microsoft family subscription, and this is my quantity of 3. So the system recorded this information, and it actually looked at in my setup. Let's say the number of years is actually the number of the quantity of the component in the bill of material in this specific example. So all the materials, there could be, of course, more. I just created a few as an example, but you would see the configuration, and I have already the configuration for the cover. It also has its own configuration behind the scenes, which basically defines for us and makes our cover as a component, a subcomponent, is a configurable manufacturing product behind the scenes. Okay, we'll just close that one. And looking at the route, I would have some route operations included already. So if I'll click on that for my finished product, and I'll click on and drill down to the route details, I have an assembly and a packing operations with some of the details and setup time done for it that we can see on the bottom for both. Half an hour for this one. So I'll just go back to my sales screen. And really, this is what is main function of the product configurator is by defining your main model, you are generating or you are creating a unique product configuration based on certain attributes, which gives you the BOM and routes information for the line that can be further carried to your manufacturing department, let's say, and can be used in production processes, and then it can be manufactured, shipped, and dispatched to the customer. One of the things which I haven't covered yet is also after the product has been configured, I've set up the system to capture some notes for us. And if I'll drill down under the paperclip, what I could see is firstly, I see the file, which is auto-generated sales price breakdown summary. So remember Excel I've opened before. So that's going to be exact same Excel spreadsheet with the pricing breakdown. So if I'll reopen it again, you would see exact same information there. So this is just stored or the details link to the order now to know exactly what has been selected or how the product has bin priced. That's the setup number 1 I've done. And then there is setup number 2, let's say, where it captures the options selected. And I'll just hover in so you could see all the details. So basically what happened is, as I was configuring my product, the system recorded all the options I selected for the configuration. And now I can actually retrieve this information elsewhere on my documents. For example, on the sales confirmation. So when you present it back to the customer, you actually see these details. The customer actually sees those details. So what exactly stands behind the scenes of this configuration. And there is no difference from the order as such after the line has been configured. Of course, you can reconfigure it again if you'd like to, or you can change your choices. By doing that, you just have to click configure line again for the same line, and you could adjust some components or some options or some attributes on that. And by doing that, it will just update your configuration on the lines. So that's it from the sales side. And let's have a look on how the model has been set up and just go through all these key components which I covered previously on my slides, how they are going to look like. There are a couple of ways how you can access the configurator models. So I can click under the modules side on the product information management, product configuration models, or I can just use a workspace on the bottom for my product variant module definition. Either or will do. If you would not have this function available, I mean the product configuration module option will not be available on your screen. You just have to ensure that your license key is enabled for the environment, because product configuration functionality is driven by the license configuration of the environment. Therefore, if it's not visible, then it's not turned on. I've just opened up the product variant model definition, and what I can see here, in addition to any other products, and I think it's also a handy thing using the workspaces, because you could work not only with the configurable product, but any product here, and you don't have to switch and think about and keep in mind which exactly product you're looking at. So by using the workspace, I could actually work on any other product and finalize it, or I can just do some adjustments related to the product configuration. There is not much information related to the product configuration models in here. We just have a summary tile which says, okay, how many product configurations we have work in progress without the linked product, let's say, without the approved version. So at the moment it's 0, and on the very bottom we would have the same link to the product configuration model setup and some of the module parameters, which I'm not going to cover, but that's also here and handy, can be accessible from here. So let's go to the product configuration models and open this up and have a look on our Surface Pro 8. So what you would also notice straight away that you have here 2 lines. So one for the surface, another for the cover. And like I mentioned before, the cover in my case, in my setup, in my example, is a subcomponent. So really it's the same product configuration module behind the scene. Let's say it's a product configuration module which is used on another one as a subcomponent. Let's just drill down to look at that and what the information and components are set. And I'll just minimize some, let's say, menu items just to see a bit more on the screen. And I'll just collapse everything. So we will open this up as we go one by one. When you're creating the model, the first thing you have to do is populate some general information. So in my case, it was Surface 8 Pro, so which is the name, any description, whether I would like to reuse the configuration. So the reuse configuration basically means that if I will select the same options twice, do I have to actually create a new configuration, or I can reuse the existing one? So in my case, I've just done the reuse, and this configuration nomenclature, remember how I pointed out on the config and the way how it's been generated, or the naming of the configuration. So this is actually at the moment driven by nomenclature. It could be just sequential number. In my case, it's option selections. And if I click on the pen, what you would see is I actually I'm actually recording the attribute values for the color, the processor type, the storage, following by just the number sequence in the end. But that's basically most of them. By looking at the config, you can actually say what stands behind the config. So that's the very first key setup. And then we'll look at the attributes. So the attributes are all the available options or questions we had in our configuration screen. Color, processor type, capacity. Each attribute could be made mandatory, hidden, or read-only, and that could be done based on the condition of certain expressions. What you would notice here is most of the attributes I've got, let's say, they were available except the very last one, which I actually marked hidden, and it's hidden always. I have nothing, no conditions applied to it. It's just by default, always hidden. You have a name of the attribute, so it's a user name, the name that is presented to the end user. The solver name is like a variable name, you could call it. So this is the name you're going to use in all the formulas further down the track if you need to. The description. So remember how I hovered on the field and it gave me a bit of an insight. What is this about? So this is exactly where it sits. Your description and details. You have an attribute type. So the type basically drives what is behind this dropdown, what is behind the color. And I can open this from just drill down from here, view details or main attribute types, or I can actually click here on the setup and I can call the same information. I'll just quickly open this up to show you how the attributes looking alike. And what I'm going to do is I will filter it by, because I've put for all my attributes the prefixes, so I can nicely filter them and see them all together. And let's say what you see is my color for the cover, color for my surface, and then I have my quantity, which is my hidden attribute, which is just integer, these internal storage options, the processor type, and so on and so forth. So what you also notice here is similar to the attribute, I have a value, which is a user-friendly name, and I also have a solver name. Solver value. Solver value is like, again, it's like a variable, something that we will use or we may use in formulas when needed. So all of these attributes has to be predefined beforehand. The system supports multiple attributes types, such as text, integer, and decimal. And you could set up the ranges of, in case if you would like to, like I did for my Microsoft subscription. I actually don't remember. I think it was in 365 subscription. What you would see, it's an integer, and it's a value range from 1 to 3. So this is exactly how I've limited one the setup. So I no longer have a list. I don't maintain the list. I just have a range here, and that can be it can be set up as a range, so the system will control it. Otherwise, it will just do any free value any value that you would like to enter if you will remove the value range parameter. You could set up the defaults for the attributes like I did for view, and you would see my color as a titanium straight away. And for my Microsoft 365 subscription and cover, and whether the attribute is included in reuse. So these are basically where we are telling the system which exactly attribute drives the reuse of my configuration. So these are all around that's all related to the attributes. Now, the most interesting things would be the constraints. This is where you get a bit of formulas. I'll try not to overwhelm you with the details, but just going to show you how that's looking like. I have two different constraints set up. One is the expression constraint, where I basically wrote down the formula saying that, let's just go to the start, where I include when I do not include Office 365, by default, my Office 365 subscription sets to none. And because I don't see this option available when I actually configure it, unless I put include Office 365 to yes, by default, the system kind of accepts that, okay, this is not required, therefore I don't have to price it, I don't have to include it in the bill, and so on and so forth. And then the second one is a bit of a restriction where it says, okay, well, after you selected the Office 365, you should not select none because you already included that. So that's another, let's say, a constraint which was added here. you're not limited to this one. You can just create whatever you like, and probably there might potentially be a bit more efficient way. And it's usually in Dynamics, you can do the same thing in at least 3 different ways. So that's probably related to any formula attributes and product configurator structure. It's really your choice, and it's really the way how you can how you configure it and how you will do it. Then I have a Surface Pro 8, which is my table constraint. I have a table constraint definition, and I can either access it from here again. So I could see what other constraints are existing. Let's say if I click on the table constraint, I have my Surface Pro 8, and I can edit the definition and see, okay, well, these are the attributes included into this constraint, and let's have a look on the content. And in my case, the content was, okay, so the Platinum is available for these processor types, for these RAM and internal storage, and basically so on and so forth. This is a matrix which says which one available for which. And once this setup is done, just go back in a second, what I also had to do is, having this constraint in place, I could map it to my, I could map it to my selection of the product configurator. So I have a color, which table constraint column it's mapped to. So basically what I do is now I have a completely separate table constraint setup with certain attributes, which may or may not be named in the same way. And I then add it to my product configurator model, and I say this attribute from the constraint is equivalent to this attribute from my configuration module. So it's a mapping exercise as well that you can do. It's all flexible because you could potentially reuse the same attribute multiple times, and maybe for different products, you could call it in a bit different way. I'm not saying it's going to be a best practice, but it's potentially doable. So these are the constraints that we had. There is basically a reference to that, and there is some setup behind the scenes. I have the calculations, and you would have, in my case, is basically I calculate the RAM capacity based on the attribute I select. This is just not even calculate. So if you select the RAM to 16, then you have to put into the component 2 pieces of your memory RAM, and otherwise, if it's not 16, it's going to be 1. So that's how the calculation looking like. It can be actually more complicated. I'll just quickly take it out to show you what exactly stands and how the expression designer looking like. When you start from the beginning, you see so many, let's say, functions. You could see the functions as well as the attributes behind the scenes. And what you could also see, for example, these are my attributes for my Surface. On the bottom, my attributes for M365 for my Office 365 subscription. So these two, then they have a prefix of my model. I'll just take it out. And then there was the same thing for the cover. I could filter. So the first, let's say, tab shows everything. And then if you want to minimize, you can select only 2 attributes, the operators and the values. And as you start populating some information, you would see that information, let's say, some values disappear, and you could only see the available operators or something that you could use. So this is how it works, and this is how it can be done. It's really relatively simple, I would say. It probably takes a bit of a time at the beginning to figure it out, but after you've done it and after you do a couple of expressions, like say, you can just very easily master it and very quickly master it. I'll just paste it back to what I had before. And then I have the components for it. So that's my cover, which is linked to the product. And I also have it hidden until my parameter is set to yes. So this is how I've manipulated, let's say, the appearance of those extra Microsoft 365 and Surface Pro options on my configuration process. What I also have, because this is going to be a manufactured product, I have already a BOM line details mapped to it. So if I click on this button behind the scenes, I actually have an access, let's say, to the BOM line, bill of material line data source, and I have all the fields that I need to populate. So in order to make possible, or populate certain value or certain information, it's enough for me just to tick the box and either put the value manually, like either hard-coded if you have it as a value. I would say hard-coded, you select it from the drop-down, or you can click on the attribute, and it's actually going to be completely attribute-driven. And that would, in this case, you will ensure that you are interacting with the system by entering the information, let's say on the configurator screen, the bill of material line will inherit all the details selected, or they'll just pick up whatever was defaulted in the screen. Let's just go back to the previous one. The user requirements, I'm not going to stop any more, let's say, any longer on this, but it actually has the exact same structure like I mentioned. It will also have to be maintained as a component. However, you would notice if I'll expand it back, there is no item number linked against it, and there is no bill of material line. So this is really the difference. But by looking overall, you would see that they also show up as a separate line in the product configurator. So it really looks like a configurable product, but it's not. It's just a phantom product that, let's say, that can add extra lines into your bill of materials, and they are just isolated, it's divided separately. And then I have the bill of material lines in the route. I just wanted to show a couple of examples, let's say, of how you can manipulate that. I'll just scroll down to the very bottom. And in my case, let's say for the memory, if you remember, I had a constraint, which, the calculation, which basically said that if you have attributes selected for 16 gigabytes, then it's going to be the quantity of 2. Otherwise, use the quantity of 1 for the raw material component. So if I'll drill down to my bill of material line details, and I'll click on the setup side, so I have a product map to it, and if I click on the setup side, you would see that I'm mapping my quantity to the constraint. So this is how you can easily transform the data or set the variable to this with a certain value, and then pass this value as a part of your bill of material, maybe route or elsewhere. And there was another one which I wanted to show is where you have, let's say, my disk drive. So I have again the item number linked to it. So you could see how the model above it for the processors has all the components, let's say, listed, let's say have all the variety listed and say, hey, if you select the i5, this is the line which can apply. If you select i5 ever, you will do it, and so on and so forth. So for the disk drive, I've selected a bit different approach for it. So if I'll click to my bill of material details and I'll click to my dimensions, what you would see is my internal storage parameters or my internal storage attribute actually equivalent to my available size dimensions on the release product. Therefore, by selecting one attribute, I don't have to have the list of all possible combinations in my product configurator module. I just basically, by making this option, I'm passing this information straight away from the configurator to the model. And the difference between this line and this one is if I'll click on the bill of material line details, first of all, I've put the condition already, and secondly, I actually went and, let's say, hard-coded or predefined the configuration itself. What you could see against the BOM line, and the same thing will pop up against the route operations, is you would see the condition set, which means that the specific line would only be included into the bill of materials only when the certain condition has been met. Therefore, not all the lines going to be in, just some. And similarly to the bill of material lines, we have the same level of details for the route operations. I'm not going to stop too much on that, but in reality, just quickly clicking this on through, this is the same look and feel, I guess. You would have to select the field, you would have to select whether it's a value or the attribute you're going to populate and use it in your model. No difference to the previous one. Some of the, probably just not to overwhelm you with too many details, I'll just go through quickly of the final, let's say, types of the setup that we have to do. So we have the base information or base details assorted. We have ability here to adjust our user interface. So our user interface is basically how the modules looks like. And you may remember, and if you don't, I'll just quickly click on the test button to show you how the module is organized. So we have a configuration button, let's say group of fields here. I have accessories group of fields. I have Microsoft 365 group of fields here. So by clicking cancel and going back, you would see its exact same look. And what I've done is I've created an attribute groups called exactly how the group of fields is called, and I can create as many as I like. I can rearrange it, remove it, shuffle it, put it elsewhere, and keep it in a logical sequence, I guess. So it will be designed in a way how it's more convenient for the salesperson to do it. So this is how you would potentially, or you could potentially move or change your interface, or you can impact on the user interface. There is no development required. You just do it, and it's a pure configuration. We have versions. Before I haven't jumped anywhere further, you would have the link to the product master, how long this link valid, who approved it, and what pricing method we use. So that's another type of the setup I've covered before. You would have the configuration templates, which I have covered as well. Basically, you have a standard template predefined, and just to click this one, I find it not really convenient that you don't have an edit button like everywhere else, but you just have to hover and then click on the link, and it will bring you what exactly you have predefined in here. So by selecting this template 100%, all the attributes going to be populated in the way how they are predefined in. And you're not limited to one. You can do as many as you like. You can activate them, and by making it active, it makes it available. If it's still work in progress and not done, that's just going to stay as inactive. And couple of other things, like probably pricing would be the most important for us. When I'm setting up the pricing, I'll just click on the price module. So you would see how that's looking like. I have a base price module. If I'll edit on that, what would you have is I have a default currency, and I could have prices in multiple currency if I'd like to. It's just enough to set up the base and then convert it, the values to the another currency you want. So multiple options. You can start from the base price, which I had, 15588, and then depends on the selection you added. It could be easy, as simple as just minus plus certain amount. Could be a bit more complicated, like you see on the bottom, where I say, oh, okay, well, if this one is selected, add this one, and so on and so forth. And again, you could, like you see, you could either use an expression instead of the condition, or you can do condition in a bit simpler expression. Again, you're not limited to what's your preferences. You just can do whatever you like. And the pricing are done area or section per section. The experience for it is similar to how you do the maintain an expression in product configurator model. So they are saying they are using the same sequence, the syntax and everything the same. And just looking at the bottom, like on the second one, for example, where I've put the Microsoft 365, I also had some rules for it defined. The pricing and the configuration module can be done and validated separately to ensure that conditions are right. And only when they are done both together, they are, let's say, the model is considered as final. Okay, I'm just closing this up and go into the previous screen. The translations I covered before. So in case if we are working in a multi-language environment, let's say, which probably something that you would more likely have here in Europe than we here in New Zealand. But yeah, you can translate, and you can change the name into any language. Similarly to the currency, you just click on the plus and you translate your original text. Just putting this a bit of an aside. Basically, you have to translate every single attribute with its value, and you just have to, yeah, put it in next to it one by one. Let's say not manually, you can load this information, but that's how it's gonna look like. And I think that was more the most important for it, I guess. There are a couple of things here in the end, which you would more likely use when you are testing and finalizing the model by test and validate, which just gives you an opportunity to run it before you actually create a sales order or the quote or something. The validate just runs your formula checks, and the exchange which is your import export. So behind the scenes, it's an XML composite data entity, which allows you to import the data into D365, which becomes handy for the data migration, I would say, or just for the adjustments. One of the probably other important things which I haven't covered before I wrap up is everything that you see here on the setup, because Product Configurator originally, it's a really powerful tool and it has so much flexibility, and especially having these, let's say, formulas and flexibility of adding various attributes, constraints, calculations, various, let's say, factors that impact on your final product. It's also, in addition to it, has been made as a multi-company, cross-company. So all of the information, all the setup you see is applicable and cross-company stored. So it's no different. So all the attributes that you define for company USMF, which I'm currently in, let's say, would be no different from another one if I'll change it at the moment. The only difference is here is everything but BOM lines and routes aren't BOM lines and routes aren't shared. Everything on the top, the requirements, component compilations, they are shared, which actually makes sense, because you would have a seamless design experience, seamless names and the same components, the same options selected, but behind the scenes, depends on the market you sell, let's say, and if you manufacture it in another market, you could actually have different products behind the scenes or bill of material lines, because certain spare parts may not be available on your market in another country, let's say. But apart from that, that's all I wanted to show you. Apologies if I overwhelm you with details. It's really a powerful tool, and there is so much more to show. And I'm conscious of time that we have. And thank you very much for your time, let's say. I'll wrap up with my demo. And feel free to ask if you have any questions.
Well, it was really, really, really good.
Do we have questions in the chat?
There was one about prices, but I think you covered that because we saw the price when you did it.
Yeah, I could comment probably more to it, because I usually get some questions, building the pricing is great, but what about special customer pricing or something like that, like a discounts, because you see the model and it's quite generic. So actually, I haven't shared my screen, but I can quickly say and come back to that. So when you do the price models, what you have as a part of the, once you've defined the model and we've defined the rules under it, there is another part of the setup which I actually haven't shared with you. You have a price criteria, and this is where you define valid and expiry dates. And also you could put here on the top, there is an edit button, which we'll call the extend filter or advanced filter, which basically will say, oh, okay, well, for this customer, for this sales order, or for this type of the mode of delivery, can you please trigger this type of the price model? So again, Product Configurator pricing is not limited to one price, it's just one I've set up. You could have as many as you like, and you could actually select and define which exactly price is going to be triggered and which filter. So some customers could have, say, their or customer groups. So you probably could, let's say, in some way, do the same as with the trade agreements, include the customers into the groups and put the filter against the group or something else. Again, you're not limited to it. It's just my imagination at the moment is limited to that example, let's say.
And why do you think people have issues using it? Why do you think it's not used more? Because it seems really powerful.
It is amazing, but it does have its own pros and cons, I guess. First is probably a bit of a maintenance. It's a bit different to the ordinary products bill of materials. It's not the same look and feel, because standard BOMs you can open in Excel, you can change, and you're done. It's all simple and pretty straightforward. With the product configuration, you have because it's a complicated structure, there is no flat table to upload the information about the components. Therefore, you have to use the composite entity. I have customers who are very advanced in that. The one of the projects I've been involved in, they actually put Excel macro, which generates it and gets the right output. So they've been really, really smart about this. Other ones just either do it customization in the area to simplify the entry, or, well, let's say doing it manually is probably going to be a suicide, because one model is okay, but doing it for, if you have a wide product range, it's a bit of a more time for the maintenance. So complexity, probably the complexity of the setup is because once you are implementing product configurator, you really have to revisit your product structure. You have to think about it in a different way. It's no longer one product, it's a range of products. And it's really hard for some, let's say, sometimes to step aside and think, okay, well, let's subdivide it into the product families. Let's define the modular components, and let's just work with these components and optimize our stock list. This is usually involves a really hard work behind the scenes and some changes from the business point of view, and not everybody is keen to do that upfront. And also probably some of the important things that to keep in mind when you are implementing that. Something which I actually also didn't cover, there is an API for it, which allows you to extend product configurator if you're using it for integration scenarios. However, if you are working with the business which is looking at using CRM in future or something like that, unfortunately, at the moment, it's not really, let's say, it is supported in a way, but it's not very well supported, I would say, for the dual write integration. And the reason I'm saying is that, you know, like when I showed you in my demo how you easily can log in into the sales order and into F&O, open the sales order, configure it, and you're good to go. You have your product configuration, you have a price. When you put in CE into this place, CE as let's say itself, it doesn't have a capability to configure the line. So as good as you could do is only add a configurable line in there, and then you actually have to go back to F&O and finalize it. So it will carry on your product structure and the list into the CE. Therefore, it's not, for some businesses, it's not really a nice flow, let's say, when you have a salesperson, because everybody expects for the salesperson just to interact with customer engagement. You open this up, you've made your choices, and you don't have to, you don't have to do anything else. And then you have to come up with either workarounds of putting those notes somewhere, and then having a sales rep behind the scenes, another person, admin person, adding it. I don't know, it's all business decisions, but I guess this is a couple of ways you definitely can make it work. But let's say it's not as great as you would get with other add-ons that exist on the market that actually give you a product configurator capabilities in CE. But I think it's good for, I mean, it's really complicated. I wouldn't expect for the configure to order businesses too many, interactions with CE, because sometimes it does require some technical knowledge. Yeah, that's probably it. The complexity and the maintenance and ability to change, I guess, for the businesses are the biggest restrictions, I would say. Of course, when they are operating in configure to order environment.
But it's out of the box, and you don't have to buy an ISV.
Exactly. And this is what it makes it amazing, because you actually you're only limited, let's say, with your imagination and the knowledge. And I've worked with amazing customers who got so smart with that, and they've done crazy things with configurator. My setup was pretty basic, but you could have some settings that create effect on how the purchase orders are created in your bill. You have a products which can be a purchase in your bill, and you can add some certain parameters that affect not on, let's say, on the they affect on the way how the product is completely, let's say, manufactured. And it's yeah, it could be as complicated as you like, and it could be as simple as you like. Of course, I try to say that we have to be mindful about what we are configuring and how complicated we should do. But sometimes, business has its own, let's say, processes, or has its own products that require certain level of complexity, I'd say.
Does anyone else have any questions? No? I actually have a few ideas, Nataliia. I'll get back to you on those after, because after seeing this, I got some ideas regarding what we wrote about if you want to do some blog posts. So I'll get back to that. And thank you very much for joining us at 5 in the morning where you are. It was a pleasure to have you here. Let's give a hand to Nataliia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting. I really appreciate that. If the opportunity to present on European XUG, so that's a bit of a new experience to me, probably first time. And yeah, thank you very much. And I'm more than happy to come back if you would find some other time slots for me to present. Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all, and I'll drop off then.
Thank you, Nataliia.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. And then we are over to our new guest star, Ines. We have been looking forward to hearing about the HR migration, which is
Yes, me too.
so hot right now.
Awesome. So I'll present my screen. Let me know if you can see it. And you can? Awesome, yeah. Because last time I have some problems. Okay, great. So this session is about the infrastructure merge. I'm going to go through some topics and share with you what's going on with Dynamics 365 Human Resources. Some of you may know what it is. Some of you may know nothing about it, and that's okay, because finance and operations and all the applications around it are very wide, and there's no enough memory in our brains to keep all this information together, at least for me. So I decided to specialize only in HR. Luckily for everyone, the infrastructure merge is coming to life, and this is what I'm going to share with you today. So thank you very much for joining tonight, maybe. And feel free to drop any question in the chat if you want to. I don't think I can see the chat, but yeah, just let me know and I will get back to you. If I cannot answer it right now, I will do after. So thank you very much. This is myself. This is a very old picture. I lost some weight since then and I've changed a bit. But yeah, this is me, and I'm an MVP since December 2020, and I am a Dynamics 365 HR practice lead. You can find there my social media where you can find me. I'm mostly speaking about HR, but also I try to speak also about employee experience or some HR business challenges, not talking only about the technology, because I come from the HR side. I'm a psychologist and I really like the processes itself. But yeah, you can find my information over there, and feel free to reach out if you have any question or any doubt. I will get back to you as soon as possible. All right, so I didn't prepare an agenda slide, but what we're going to walk through today is the difference between HR and finance, and why this migration that is coming to life is pretty awesome for us, and why it's going to change not only your life, Dynamics finance consultants and solution architects and practice managers, but it's also going to solve our lives from the HR side, like consultants from the HR side. So we are having now, I think that till now we were having a war between two platforms in from one same company that were providing different solutions, but at the end of the day we're solving the same challenges. So we had from one end we had human resources, who has gone back and forth into it was part of AX, and then it got out of the AX, and they created Dynamics for Talent, and then they deprecated that and they created HR, and they went, and now Microsoft is going back to the infrastructure from finance and operations. That was how everything was working at the beginning. But despite that back and forth, I think that we're in a state at the moment that we're really mature, and we went through, and I'm speaking as I'm a part of the team, but I'm not. But we went through so much, like the solution has changed so much, and we are at this moment where we are providing some very good signs to customers and partners as well. But also, I think that is a very good sign because it shows customers how important it is for Microsoft to invest in this kind of solution. So I'm going to move forward and I'm going to share the next slide. So we have two, as I was saying, we have two solutions. We have they're not 100% the same because we know that finance can provide some insights or some functionalities that HR can't, and the other way around. So if we think about HR only as a solution, we know that it provides from hiring to leave, I mean, from hire to retire, it provides all the capabilities for an employee to be able to complete life cycle. And that's pretty good because we can touch some points as development, compensation, benefits, compliance, leave and absence, and so on. And that's really good because it's like the soft processes that we can fulfill. But from the other side, if we go to finance, we know that we have an HR module because, of course, every company needs an employee, or at least one employee to work, and lots of modules within Dynamics Finance and Operations need for input from that employees to actually trigger some process. So we know that Finance and Operations has this module that is mainly for financial processes, but we also do have some of the other functionalities, like very not so in depth, but we do have some other functionalities from the soft side of human resources. At the moment, what I'm seeing and what I'm lacking, and I hope this changes soon, is that we have this fantastic functionalities in finance that are part like time and attendance or expense management that are not available in human resources. So with this infrastructure merge, and I'm hoping, I'm crossing my fingers under the table, you can see me, but I'm doing it because I think that most of our customers, and I see these in lots of pre-sales, is that they need something that is not only thinking about like the soft part of HR, but also about the things that are impacting the business in terms of money and financially, of course. So what we have right now is a very complex scenario. I mean, I think that we're in a very good position at the moment, much better than we were like 6 months ago. Where we are able to say how the roadmap it's looking like, and where are we going through, and where are we going to, sorry. But yeah, it still is kind of a difficult situation. One thing that I think that is really good is that when this merge comes to life, I think that is already happening because my environment has some changes and things are moving around, and I cannot find some links that the day before were in another place. So I think that is very good because it's giving us the opportunity to speak with our customers in a very different way and to provide answers to questions that were frequently asked in every demo and every conversation we had. So let's go to the next one. Well, we had a chaos, and as I told you already, we had two solutions for the same challenge, and it was quite difficult because we had these two solutions and we had also different scenarios for our customers, and the combination between them and the solutions and the platforms provided by Microsoft were kind of a really difficult situation. So we had not only the challenge that our customer may or may not require some of the functionalities from HR, but also from the finance side. but also the technical issues that this chaos can bring. So it was really difficult to have a demo a couple of years ago with a customer and help them to choose between the two solutions, because at the end of the day, Microsoft is the partner, the company that is building everything, and why do I have to choose between two things that are doing the same? So at this moment, and after a lot of back and forth, I'm sorry, it's not we, I'm not part of it, but Microsoft decided to move forward, invest a lot of money, invest a lot of effort, and of course the team is growing a lot, and decided to build some solution that is very consistent, and it brings us a lot of clarity to mainly, I mean, for us consultants or partners, maybe it's easy, but for the customer, it's really confusing the situation. So I think that we're in a very good point, and I'm really looking forward for what's going to happen, and I'm hoping we can see some very good projects around the corner. So what does it mean, this is smart structure merge? So as I said before, we had a few finance and operations platforms with a specific infrastructure, and then we had human resources with another completely different one. And the thing was that human resources was like the lost child, and no one really wanted it because of that complexity on the infrastructure. And the thing is that things as simple as developing something in HR was mainly not possible. We needed to extend it or to use a web app or a power app or a power platform. But in terms of code, in terms of actually personalizing the experience, was really difficult for our customers. And something as simple as a finance technical consultant is not able to replicate the work in human resources, not as of until now. And now if that's going to change, so I'm hoping to see a lot of technical consultants and solution architects, more from the technical side, from the financial side, that can come along and share with us, with the HR folks, some of this amazing things they've been doing for all this time. So what we're having right now is that the infrastructure merge, I'm sorry, I'm speaking too fast. It's going to bring us a lot of possibilities on integrations between the different finance applications that we have at the moment. And I think these are the 5 applications. I might be missing one, but as I told you at the beginning, my brain is not good enough to collect all the information around finance and operations. And thank God you exist, because if not, I am not able to do this. So this will give, of course, our customers all these 4 points that you can find here. And I think that the most important one is the market clarity, because we need to be able to be clear, and of course to stand in a pre-sales demo with a customer and be very firm and consistent with our words and with the solutions. Because the main thing is that this market clarity will help us against our competitors that are really strong, but we have something that they don't have, and is the capability of integrating with all the ongoing systems that everyone has in the companies, and they're mainly all Microsoft. So this is something that we can provide and we can bring along, and our competitors are not able to bring in such a smooth way. So I think that this market clarity is the best thing. And of course, the expansibility is going to be amazing, because we're going to be able to touch the code and to do more personalized stuff. As you know, I don't know if you know, but human resources staff, it's if you ever had a demo with them, you know that they are focused not in the functionality, but the look and feel. And as you know, Dynamics HR or finance, they are not so awesome or so catchy or so fancy so that people can fall in love with it. It's only nerds like us that are in love with the solution, but HR that is focused on how it looks, they don't actually feel as attracted to it as us. So in this extensibility thing, we're going to be able to prepare our demo pre-sales like very much tailor it to our customers, and that's gonna be really good. I'm hoping like big things are gonna come, and yeah, I know I'm speaking to the future, but they are already happening. So this is going to be really good. So we're going to have 3 scenarios that I'm going to share with you. And if you already attended my session from the FinOps Summit, I'm sorry they are the same, but I think I need to spread my voice around this. So we have 3 scenarios, and you can find much more scenarios in the official Microsoft documentation. I selected these 3 ones because I think they are the most important. And the first one is about customers that are going or are working on Dynamics HR implementations at the moment. So these customers and I know this is really a difficult conversation to have with a customer, or maybe a difficult conversation to have as account manager with a partner or whatever, but just bear in mind that the recommendation from Microsoft and from the product team is that we need to move forward in these implementations that we are working in the Dynamics HR platform. The recommendation is to start implementing it in finance and operations HR module. And the reason is because, and we're going to see this in a second, but the reason is because we will have the need of a migration. And if the customer already goes live in the finance and operations environment with the HR module, that migration might be not as heavy as if they go live with HR and they want to go live with HR. So that's the recommendation. I know it's very, very difficult, and I'm a bit jealous that we need to make that move. But anyway, it is what it is, and that's the recommendation that we need from the product team. So then we have our second scenarios, and we have our customers that are using HR with the capabilities that Dynamics 365 Finance is not providing yet. So that is not going to be really difficult. So despite 2 main modules, the other, I think, 12 modules from HR are going to be available or updated in finance operations soon. So if your customer is using HR and wants to, of course, it will need to do the migration, they will be able to enjoy the functionalities from HR in finance, not so longing time, like not so far away, and that will be very good. There are 2 modules I can't remember. I know that one, I think it's benefits management, the new one, and the other one I don't remember. But there are 2 modules that are going to be released in December, but the rest of them are starting here in June 2022. So it's not so long till June. And yeah, in a second that the 2 months go away really fast. And the third scenario is those customers that are using the data integrator between HR and finance. For example, in the company that I'm working right now here in Spain, we have a custom integration between HR and finance. HR is the one that gives finance the information and the data. So like HR, it's ruling this integration. And the thing is that because of this infrastructure merge, this data integrator from Power Platform, it's not longer going to be needed. And because like you will not need it anymore because it's going to be part of the same infrastructure. And that's a very good news, because believe me, I am in charge of this integration in the company, and I am having a never like from 3 days right now, and I'm going crazy because I can't find the solution. And yeah, the fact that they're going to be easily integrated and like smoothly integrated, that gives me a lot of relief, because I will not have to spend time thinking about it. So yeah, that's the third scenario, and that's about it. And yeah, so in terms of migration, I was looking for a session that Rachel Profit presented in the FinOps Summit a few weekends ago. I think I did, so it doesn't matter. But it's not live yet. It's not published. I don't know if they're going to publish. Maybe later we can talk about that. But that's a very good session, and I think it brings a lot of clarity about how to prepare the data for the migration. So I'm not going to speak about that. I'm going to speak about how this migration is going to be done and how it's going to look like. So the people that is using the HR, the customers that are using HR module within finance and operations, they are not going to need any migration. They're going to start accessing the Dynamics 365 HR functionalities, like I will not say slowly, but they will have the releases in what you already know, the feature management from system administration. They're going to be able to enable them or not. That is up to the customer if they want to use them or not. So they will have access to these functionalities once they are enabled. And apparently it's beginning in January 2022. That was what the documentation said, but of course it's going to be in June 2022. At least that was what the release plan says, and I hope it doesn't change because I'm waiting for this I think for a year now. For customers using Dynamics 365 HR who are going to need to move to the new infrastructure, Microsoft will provide a migration tool. We really don't know how it's going to look like. It is, I think, because of the release notes, they're somehow based on LCS, but I'm not sure how it will look like. And this will start about May 2022, which I expect also to come to live on June, maybe August 2022 this year. And for customers using both, these cases where we have, I truly can't believe we have customers using both, but we do. Well, I say I can't believe it, but we have it in my current company. Well, anyway, the thing is that customers having two of these solutions, we will also need to do the migration, and this migration is going to be a bit more complex than the one before, like the ones compared to the ones customers using only HR. And the fact, the reason behind that is that of course, that if you have HR and you have finance and you have the data integrator, you were able to update your data. But now what you need to do is with this migration tool, you will need to make sure that all the information you are migrating, it's not duplicated, or you have to be really really conscious about the migration that you are doing. And yeah, that's something that's I think is going to be the most difficult scenario, and we will see how it goes. And of course, this is going to be ready for late this year. I think that it might take a bit more, maybe this time next year we're going to see. And I'm being really pessimist about the dates, but it's been so much that I lost all my hopes. And yeah, we are expecting that to happen soon. So what about licensing and how this impacts in our licensing agreements with our customers, or how that it will impact? So for Dynamics HR users, we're not having to have, there are not going to be any licensing impact in terms of investment. So as you know, Dynamics HR has, and I'm going to say this in dollars because I don't know in euros how many it is, but we have the human resources licenses are about 120, I think, yeah, $120, and from the for the employee self-service capabilities, about $4 a month a user. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. It requires a PhD to be able to say something okay about licensing. So I'm sorry if I'm saying something wrong, but that's about it. And it's not going to have any impact in terms of licensing for our Dynamic 365 HR customers for now. But it's a different situation for the finance, supply chain management, project operations, or commerce. It's going to be a different scenario. It's going to be a different situation. So they will have all these capabilities from human resources that we already have in the HR. They will have them released, and they will have them for the same price that they are paying at the moment until February 25, or if their licenses expire before, of course, before that. And after that date has come, like after February 2025, they will need to acquire licenses for the specific human resources application. And because of this migration at the moment, and I don't know if this is going to change, no additional environment will need to be purchased for those customers using finance, supply chain management, project operations, or commerce. So for now, at the moment, this is not going to have any impact. I think that it's not going to have any impact until February 2025, but let's keep our fingers crossed that nothing changes, and that the licensing guide is not changing or updating something. So this is mainly what licensing looked like, and I think that's it. So I know that I spoke a lot, and I may have made up some words because I've been speaking since 9 a.m. And yeah, but if you have any questions, if you have anything you need to know, I'm pretty sure I will not have the answer, but I can get back to you and let you know, the answer. I don't know, guys, if you have anything you want to add or anything you want to ask.
I think, Ludwig, you posted a question.
Yeah, we have some question in the chat. The first one is from me. It's about payroll capabilities. Do you know if one day we will see a payroll functionality?
No, we're not going to see payroll in human resources ever. The thing about payroll is that every country and even every region from countries has a really specific processing of payroll. And because that is impossible to develop like custom to every country, what Microsoft is recommending is to go through a third provider, like an ISV or some other payroll provider that you find out there, and integrate. There's an API where that you can connect with it, and but it's not going to happen. Not now, not never.
Okay. And then the other question is from Lone. It would be interesting if you can combine HR and time and attendance. So do you have any insights in this time and attendance functionality?
Yeah, I'm trying to have a call with the product manager because we have a monthly catch up, but the past 3 months we've been both really busy, and we couldn't have the conversation. But that's the main conversation I want to have, because I want to, for example, I'm an employee for my current company, and I use HR for asking for vacation, but I use finance to log my my working hours. So it's, you know, we have everything embedded and it looks really nice, but at the end of the day, there are two separate solutions. So I'm really looking forward for that, and I really expect they can not only migrate HR to finance, but do it the other way around.
Yeah, the project timesheets and the expense reports also could be interesting.
Yes,
Actually.
exactly.
I was just thinking, Anna, you shared a video with me. If it's okay, I will just share it in the chat where you explain how easy it is to change the employee self-service in HR. That was
Yes.
I showed it to one of my customers, and they were really like, "Oh, that's amazing!" So I will just share it in the chat so people can see it, because I think that's one of the strong features. And when we talk about HR because I've done some demos on it now, and when I say that it's you can configure it and it's possible to do it the way you want it, but the way you show it in that video is actually showing what we are trying to explain to them. So I will just put that in the chat.
Thank you for the feedback. I really like that you like it.
So yeah, does anyone else have anything about this?
There's a lot of work coming our way, so.
Yeah, the video is in the chat now.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you very much, Anna, for your time.
Thank you.
It was nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy I'm there. I'm here at the same time. So thank you very much for the invite. And if anyone needs to, if you have any question or anything, just feel free. I'm always answering.
I know that. Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for your time. So our next topic for today is to decide when the next meeting should be, because there is a conflict in Germany and actually also in Denmark on the 26th of May, which should have been our meeting, and that's a vacation day in Germany. Am I right, Ludwig?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's what is it called? Christi Himmelfahrt. If somebody knows the English term.
We don't have it in Dublin, I can tell you.
Yeah, I think it's is it Pentecost weekend or something? Pentecost.
It's Thursday is a day off, and then Friday is usually a vacation day.
Yeah, I think it might be around Pentecost. I think it's the religious thing. We don't get it, even though, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have the 2nd of May instead.
That's Labor weekend. Does Europe not get that? Is that not a European thing?
I don't think we don't
No?
have it in Denmark.
Okay.
Yeah, but I also saw when I looked at bank holidays for Ireland, they just put in some bank holidays, it seemed, here and there.
No, well, the May one is Labor Day. It's usually the 1st of May, but we always get it on the Monday, the following Monday.
Oh.
And the June one is a religious one. That's Whit Sunday, and that's usually the first weekend in Sunday in June, but we always get it the Monday as well. The only day we take the day is Patrick's Day. That's the only day. Every other holiday is the following Monday.
Yeah. So the question is now, the next meetup, should it be, for example, the 2nd of June, or which is a Thursday, or maybe a Monday or Tuesday that week? Then it's the end of May on the 30th or 31st. Anyone has any preferences? We have that day we have Yevgen and Ludwig, who will tell us about. Ludwig, can you share?
Yeah. So for the next one, we have basically Natalia's husband, Yevgen. He will talk about Azure Confidential Ledger and how you can use it for tamper-proof storage of document. So you can basically guarantee that there is no falsification of business documents, any kind of documents. And then we are looking for a second presentation. So we have not finalized the agenda.
We
So
have
if you-
one that might come, but we need to set the date before I ask him. So Peter suggests the 25th, which is then the Wednesday before the day of. That could work for me.
25. Yeah, maybe we can make a suggestion in the chat. So just put your idea in the chat, and then we see what is the most common one.
Yeah.
So we have 25.
Put your preferred date in. And the next one will be in English also, or Ludwig, because Evgen doesn't speak German.
Yeah, we can make, I think, Ukrainian, or how this is called. I don't know the exact word. Yeah.
Okay, we have 2 for the 25th and nothing else.
25. Okay. Yeah, then let's do it a day before, I would say.
Yeah.
So 25 should be fine. Yeah, and if somebody has topics and wants to present something, just let us know, because we are always looking for presenters.
I might invite someone to come and share some things with you, maybe from the finance side.
You have an idea, Anna?
I have a friend that might be interested in coming.
Yeah.
I will let him know and will let you know
Perfect.
the answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea. It's always good to have new people talking, and we are basically really nice people here, so it's not the worst crowd to speak for.
Definitely.
So good.
Oh, okay. Luna, I think then we stick with 25.
Yeah, let's do that, and we will put up the agenda as soon as possible, so you can see it. And let's then wrap up